Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Friday Eve. We are here for another workshop series episode. Today, we're talking about mentorship and creating momentum through mentorship. But before we get into that, let me give my partner, Denise, some time and space to go ahead and tell the people who you are.
You are always so gracious. That is one of the reasons, one of the things that I look forward to when I spend time with you. So thank you, Javon. I am Denise Johnson. I'm an ICF certified executive coach, leadership and team development consultant, and speaker. You can find me at I'm sorry, growpeopleforimpact.com.
Love
Javon,
it.
how about you?
Yeah, so Javon Wooden here. I am also an ICF certified coach, but also just really an emotional intelligence advocate. All the
Mm.
work that I do, whether it's coaching, speaking, workshop facilitation, is really centered around emotional intelligence and how that can leverage us to move our business and our lives forward.
That's awesome. Thank you
So
for that.
thank you. Oh, and stay to the end because if you can't just watch the replay, Denise and I have something special for you all. We know we've covered a lot of topics, so we got something really special in store at the end of this. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation on mentorship. Before we even get going, let's define it so we're all on the same page in this conversation. Denise, you wanna share what that really is?
You know what? I will, but Javon, let's talk about what mentorship is not,
Mm.
because I think that there's a lot of confusion. In fact, I was having a discussion with um, a client this week, and there was even a pretty senior client. There was some confusion about what mentorship is and who really mentors who. So let's start with saying that mentorship is not coaching. It's
Yes.
different. So do you want me to highlight what's different about coaching and
Please.
mentorship? Okay.
Absolutely.
So coaching is you have a coach, a partner, and the coach is really coach totally is in service to the person being coached, and the coach has a lot of preparation to be a coach. And Javon and I called out ICF certification. So there's lots of investments and preparation in order to do that. And the coach is a partner along an extended journey. Is there anything else you want to call out about coaching that would be helpful to think about right here, Javon?
Yeah, I mean, and also in the traditional sense of the coach, a coach is going to ask you some powerful questions. They may not necessarily give you the advice or the
That's it.
guidance, right?
That's it. That's
So,
it.
yeah, I think that's very key for people to understand. So we've said what it is not. So what is it? What is mentorship? So
You
it's
know,
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, you, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really about mentorship is really about sharing ideas and the opinions, right? And then also I like to say mentorship is not a paid thing. We see a lot of people calling their programs
Mm.
mentorships. I I disagree with that. I don't feel that you should have to pay for mentorship. I feel like it should be organic. Yes, it can be formal or informal in how
Mhm.
you get that mentor mentee relationship, but I think that there should be some guidance given. There should be a goal within mentorship. You can't just come into a session and say, "Hey, I don't really know what to talk about today. How was your day?" Right? It should be a goal. It should be for both, for mentors and mentees should have a goal in that relationship. Anything you'd like to add?
I think that that's great. Having a goal that's important. And a lot of times mentors are selected because that's someone who you look up to, someone
Mhm.
who you admire professionally and or personally as well. Sort of, a role model. Typically someone more senior in the organization. Call out, though, does not have to be someone in your organization. So we don't have to limit ourselves. And we've got some interesting stories to share later on that will kind of bring that into play. So yeah, and I love the thing that you called out about, it's not about having a conversation about how was your day and exchanging sentiment around how things are going. It's about engaging and learning. So that's what the mentee gets. And the mentor gets the opportunity to invest
Hmm.
in someone else.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. And then, a lot of people are listening. They're like, yeah, mentorship is cool. Or they've had some not so good experiences being a mentor or getting mentored. So let's talk about why it's important. And then we can kind of get into some of the things we want to look for to determine if it's a good fit or not. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I heard the word that's not through discern, right? That's so important. Discern if it's a good fit. So yes, so one of the reasons that I think that mentorship is absolutely important is, and we've got a resource that we'll share later on that connects the dots here, is that it helps build inclusion. And I don't even know if the game show comes on anymore where you had to phone a friend. Sometimes your mentor is that is that friend that you're going to phone. So it gives you a person in the organization. What else do you see, Javon?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said some amazing things already. And then there's this concept of culture, right? When you have someone
Mhm.
who's being guided, who's being mentored, who's being supported in that way, the growth process is expedited because you have someone who's been along that journey that you can really ask and refer to if you're stuck or if you need to bounce some ideas off of others. So there's also this premise of innovation, right? Because you're talking
That's
working and
good.
working through ideas. They're shortcutting your success. They've already fell on their face a few times, most likely, so they can kind of get you around any of those foreseeable obstacles, so you can go ahead and be successful in whatever goals you set out to hit.
And what a great opportunity it is for someone to really sow into someone else and help them not fall into the pits that they've fallen into. I
Mhm.
think that's a tremendous gift. And another thing that I want to put out there is that it builds accountability. Accountability is, it's almost one of the words I call them tired words or tired phrases. It's words that we use all the time, but we use it
Mhm.
all the time because it's very, very important. Mentorship builds in informal accountability. And, Javon and I will talk about some mentorship opportunities and stories that we've had um, in our past. But one of the things that I remember is just not wanting to disappoint my mentor, wanting to be able to honor his time and his investment in me with following through with what he advised, what our conversations were about. So I think that's a very, very important piece.
Yeah, that is so true, and that's kind of why you have to come in. You have to be mindful of time, right? This person is they're at the pinnacle. They're doing well in their successes, so you have to make sure that you value time if you're going to be a mentee of this mentor. So I'd like to say, like, prepare for that relationship. Know what you want to ask them. Know what you want to talk about. Come ready, and then for that mentor side, mentors learn as well. I know I've been a mentor, and Denise, I'm sure you've done it as well. Like the
Mhm.
perspective shifts that can happen when you're mentoring someone are invaluable. If you have the right mentee, and it's really up to both sides to recognize that, and it kind of goes to our next point of, how do you determine if it's the best fit? You have to. It's really has to be in alignment, or else it's just not going to work. I was coaching someone the other day, and they were like, I was trying to mentor someone, but they never come prepared. They never have anything to talk about, and I feel like I have to, like, should I reach out? Should I do this? And sometimes the best thing you can say is, okay, maybe this person is not quite ready to be mentored. They don't really know where they're looking to go, and quite frankly, it's not the mentor's job to say, hey, this is what we should talk about, right? So we have to hold them accountable, right?
Absolutely. So what I hear you describing there is that the mentee needs to be thirsty for that information, that knowledge, that
Mhm.
perspective that the mentor is going to give. So come prepared and seek your mentor out, very practically. I think that
Mhm.
that's an extremely important piece. And the other reason, another thing that I think that's important, why it's important to have mentorship relationships is um, you can have off the record conversations. And I think what I mean by that might be pretty clear, but sometimes we want to have conversations and we don't need everyone to be in on what we're pondering, what we're thinking about, what we're maybe don't have the answer to.
Mm,
Reaching out to the mentor can be a private space to do that in, and you can totally show up vulnerable in a trusted mentor relationship. That is so important for people as we're all learning and growing.
that's huge. That you can be yourself, like that. That's why that alignment is so important. That
Mm.
authenticity, right? If you both can be yourselves, you're going to get much more value out of it versus if you feel like you have to be a certain way in order to connect with this person. So make sure your mentor really aligns with your values, allows space, and vice versa, right? Allow space for you to feel psychologically safe enough to say, I'm gonna show up as my whole self in this situation. You don't have to
Mhm.
rush, right? Having a mentorship,
Mm.
there's programs out here, of course, like formal programs that you can get into that help you match. So if your organization has that, great. But don't rush in, right? Get to know the person, the mentee and mentor should have like a preliminary meeting to discuss before they engage in that formal partnership. Because that way you can make sure that everything is going to be right. Just because someone has achieved some level of success in what you do does not necessarily mean they're the right person to help you get to that level.
Javon, that reminds me of a mentoring story that I have. And actually, I've got two that are very different. And you mentioned formal programs. And I know you know about this story and I'm going to share with folks the follow-up question you asked me after I shared the story. That very early on in my career, I worked for a pretty large organization, and there was a formal mentorship program implemented. And so mentors who were more senior and more tenured in the organization were connected with people who were less and less in the organization. So I was on the less senior and less tenured portion. And I was matched with my mentor. Now, I want to, here's my disclaimer here. This was early in my career. I'm going to put it in time frame of years. So I was somewhere in my mid 20s at that point. And I was connected with my mentor, had my initial conversation, um, and didn't feel like I had any connection with my mentor.
Mm,
She showed up differently in the world than I did. Was black female. She was a black female, white female, different age, totally different age range. And I went back to the organizers of the program and said, you know what, I don't really know where the connection is, and pretty much indicated, I don't know how she can mentor me. And you might be thinking, well, Denise, that was a career limiting move. Perhaps, but it was authentic, it was vulnerable, and there may be people experiencing the same things as they go through formal mentorship programs.
right.
So when I shared the story with Javon, Javon said, "So what happened? Did they give you another, did they give you another mentor?" And I said, "Nope, I didn't have another mentor." So I needed to find a mentor informally that worked fairly, and that process worked fairly well for me.
Tell us more about the informal. Tell us how did you go about finding that mentor, and what were some of the results of this mentorship?
That's a great question. So I want to, I'll share another informal mentorship connection that I had with another organization. So I had originally, went in the organization. Of course, I'm new to the role. I'm gonna find myself a mentor. Approached one person in the organization, and it wasn't a fit. And there were a couple of things that happened that just didn't leave me too comfortable. So I said, okay, I got to scrap this, and I've got to keep in the back of my mind and need another mentor. So it just so happens that I um, started having a conversation with a person who was in our kind of sister organization, so not within the same org that I was in, and he started mentoring me. So that's why I made the point earlier. A mentor does not have to be in your company. Does not have to be in your line of business, does
Right.
not have to be in your organization, period. But he started mentoring me, and over time, that mentorship relationship was not only about, hey, Denise, think about this professionally, or, hey, what should I do about this? But it really became kind of a life mentorship relationship.
Mm.
And I'll share with you that he and I connected in, it's around 2005, 2006. So this is a mentorship relationship that has endured, man, almost 20 years.
Wow, and that's the power of it, though. It's like you start off with this one thing, and now you probably ask them all types of stuff.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's
So
open.
like
It's open.
get all that sage advice that you can. But that's the power of finding that right mentor because it can grow into something so much more powerful. Right? You maintain this connection, even dare I say it, become friends. Sometimes. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's boundless. It's boundless if you
Yeah.
have that right person.
So, Javon, you explained something, mentorship endeavors, also that didn't quite pan out the way you expected, too.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I had a mentor late in the game, like probably in my 30s, right? That was the first time that I experienced a mentor, a formal mentor. I've always had virtual mentors, so I've always looked at people and said, "Hey, how did they get there? What would they do? In this situation, how do I think they would handle it?" And that's been my experience. That's really how I've gotten through all these years because throughout my career, I just didn't it never happened that way, right? Where I
Mhm.
identified a mentor and they would formally mentor me or any of this. Until my 30s, that's when I ran into a guy who gave me my first shot in cybersecurity. Right, he took a
Wow.
shot at me, and has always been there. So he's someone I still consider him a friend to this day. And he has since retired from the field, enjoying his life with his wife. So I don't bother him as much anymore. But he really helped me get into that field and helped me cultivate all the skills and the experiences I've had in my 30s. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yep. So.
So I want to tap into how people, we heard that word come out, discern
Mhm.
who is the right mentor for them. And when we started to talk about that, maybe we can talk about that a little bit further because I think that, some of our experiences illustrate that it's important to be comfortable in that relationship.
Absolutely, and that's one of the keys, right? If you feel like you can have that conversation with that person, you don't have to, kind of tiptoe around topics. They're both comfortable with some tough because if you have a real mentoring relationship, there's going to be some things that come up, whether it's personal or professional. So
Mm.
that person you both need to be comfortable with that because as we said with yours, I'm sure it started off like professionally, but then things like, oh, I'm having this situation in my personal life. What would you do? Do you mind talking to me about it or let me walk through this? Right. That comes up. I know in my mentorship, experiences that has happened. So you have to be willing to be vulnerable, as you said earlier, authenticity, as we said earlier, the guidance, the way it's communicated has to align with how you like to be communicated with. Because if it's not, you probably won't hear the lessons that they're giving you.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
I would also say time. Right? If either person does not really dedicate and is not committed, then it's really not a good fit. And what I mean by that is, if you find that you or that mentor, y'all have entered into this relationship, this partnership, and y'all keep moving to meetings because it's not a priority, then it may be not a right fit, or maybe not the right time.
Yeah,
So you have
that's
to
a
really think
great,
about that. What about you? What do you
yeah,
think?
that's a great indication. So I would align with that. And I think that it's also in the beginning stages of connecting with someone, and going into mentorship. I think it's important to be very clear about what you want. You can ask them. It sounds kind of awkward and maybe a little cliche, but you can ask them, "Are you interested in mentoring me? I'd
Hmm.
really like you to be my mentor," and tell them exactly why.
Mm.
I don't know who doesn't love to hear wonderful things about themselves that they can potentially give or assist other people leveraging who they are. Who doesn't love that?
Right.
So, so be clear. I'm not talking about flattery for the case of flattery, right? But be clear about the relationship that you want and why you want that. Be clear about the time investment it might
Hmm.
be for that person so they can evaluate if it's right for them at this time. Maybe it's not right at this time, maybe it's right at some other time. Be clear about the things that might pop up and be on your mind that you might need assistance with so they can make that decision and be honest with you. I think that those are all really important things. And if you start right, there's a better opportunity to have a better relation, a stronger relationship, and to end right too. So that's what I would advise. And another thing that comes to mind, Javon, we mentioned formal mentoring programs, and I shared a story about one that for me did not go so well. But
Hmm.
let's talk about the things that organizations might need to think about when just thinking about if they need to put together a formal mentorship program. Any ideas about that? I've got a couple, but let me defer to you.
Absolutely. Like as you mentioned, the formal one that just didn't work out for you. Representation matters, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like that's why a lot of these programs do not go so well because as you get higher and higher, the diversity thins out, right? So representation really matters in these programs. Buy-in is very important. So if you don't have like executive sponsors for these programs, then it probably won't last very long. Clarity on the goal. Why is this mentorship program even in existence? Because a lot of companies they just do things just because they're like, oh, we want to say we have this, right? We want to be an awesome place to work, so we can say we have a mentorship program. But what's the goal of that? And who's involved? Is it for aspiring leaders? Is it for high performers who may be people leaders at some point? Is it for technical people? Right. So we got to know, like, because those programs are going to look different. Is it for people who just joined the company, more like a
Mhm.
sponsor type of thing where they need to that built-in network? So there's different reasons and rationale on why a company can create that mentorship program. So that needs to be clear. And then the time commitment, time frame. We have to think about that. Are we meeting monthly? Do we meet, once a week? How does that look? And then how are we making sure that there's an agenda? Because again, we don't want to get on these calls and be wasting, we some people get paid pretty decent money. So you don't want them to be sitting on a call for an hour and not talking about anything. There's no progression. So we should have agendas to each meeting. And if you don't need that meeting, instead of saying, oh, let's not have it, you still want to keep the habit. But for a mentee, there's always something to talk about. And I would also venture to say that a way to make it so that mentor is invested outside of saying, oh, I did this thing on my resume, the mentee should ask how they can be of service to that mentor.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, because it's not a
Yeah.
selfish endeavor, right? So it should be a mutually beneficial relationship. And that mentor may say not at that time, I don't have anything at this time, but thank you for asking. Or they may say, you know what? I have this thing, right? You can help me with this, and it will also help your career as well. So there's other ways. There's so many things that the organization needs to think about. But if you're going to make it formal, and and have some goals, a cadence, and all these other things set.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'm thinking about from an organizational perspective, it's important to connect the mentorship initiative with some type of business metric.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps there's a population within the organization that the organization is working on growing, and the business metric might be retention. It might be folks moving into stretch assignments or uh, promotional assignments. So tied it in with some business metric so we can measure the mentorship initiative collectively. And in terms of the mentor and mentee, one of the things that I recommend is using some sort of tool, some sort of psychometric assessment tool to match people. One of the things that I've done in the past is to use a tool and actually match folks who complement one another. That is my nice way of saying bringing opposites together.
I love it.
So, yes, so both the mentor and the mentee can challenge each other's thinking. We've spent a lot of time talking about it's a two-way street, such as life. There is a give and take, and a take and give. So both the mentor and mentee, if they're opposites, they can challenge, and both of them have an opportunity to grow in the relationship. And the last point that I would make about that is as organizations consider putting together a formal mentorship initiative, just be mindful that mentorship could be the difference between someone
100%.
staying and someone going, someone being complacent in their role or reaching to get a little bit more. So it could be a game changer for individuals in your organization.
That's a great point, and that really should be one of the goals, right? In every mentorship program, because again, if people start feeling like they are valued within that organization, you're setting them up for success. Then
Yeah.
and also that mentorship program could also be a way for you to get some themes, right? Because as people share and you hear some common things, mentors start to see like they may get some new ideas on how to best support people. Because if that mentee, if
Absolutely.
they get enough mentees coming to say, you know what, I just feel like this X thing is an issue, ring, right? So that's a great way to get that feedback authentically and in a safe space for that mentee to feel like they can share.
Absolutely. And Javon, I know we're running close on time, and there were also a couple of resources that we put together to um, just to help people with just getting some more context around mentorship. Are you
Hmm.
able to post those?
Let me see. Like, yes, I can actually.
Okay. Yeah, and there's three. I'll explain. Thank you, Javon. While Javon is investigating, posting those, there's three articles. One's an HBR. There's a Forbes article, and then there's some prompts there that just really gives some foundation around how mentorships can help people grow. Why it's the second one is why it's important in connecting mentorship with DEI initiatives, really helping to grow people who might be underrepresented in the organization. And the third is literally some prompts, some ways, some things that we can use to engage in conversations.
Absolutely. And I love that because I know a lot of people get stuck like, what the heck do I talk about in these
Yeah,
conversations, right? So
for
I,
sure.
I really love the resources that shared. It's really, it's really organic. Like, if you come in, just start with one question, start with one thing, and it naturally typically just flows out. So I look forward when you all do get in, if you're in a mentorship, mentee relationship already, we'd love to hear how it's going for you and some aha moments you've had during this conversation. If you're not, then good, because this next thing that we're going to talk about, which is our group coaching program that we're
Talk about
introducing,
it.
right, will help you formalize your mentor mentee program or help you understand how best to leverage having a mentor or be a successful mentee. Right. So we've talked about a lot over these months that we've been doing
Yes.
this, Denise. We talked about psychological safety, mentorship, inclusivity,
Yep.
coaching mindset. So that's a
Yes.
lot, and a lot of people who
Yes.
have watched, they've said, great stuff. But if you need a little more support, we got you. We have this program, and we really want to co-create it with you. So if you are
Mm.
interested in really learning more and working with Denise and I, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to be a little more discreet, message us. Let us know that you're interested in getting that psychologically safe culture, that inclusive culture, developing a mentor as a mentor, or creating a formal program. There's so many things that we can work on with you. So
Yes.
and it's really about what the Niece's company is called, growing people for impact.
That's awesome. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I thank you for introducing that and saving that nugget for last. And we're doing this in a group coaching format, and group coaching is absolutely so powerful because you have guidance and partnership, and we get to learn and grow with one
Mhm.
another. And I think that that's just phenomenal.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. Well, I've had fun. I hope you listeners, I hope you all had a good time and took away some things. So comment in the chat, as we said, and this will be on replay. So make sure you all share this out. If you know someone who could benefit from the conversations we've had, share it with your network. Tag us when you share it, so we can send you gratitude. And until next time.
So, Javon, before we go, would you remind people how they can reach you?
Absolutely. Good call. So you can catch me on LinkedIn, Javon Wooden. You'll see a light bulb next to my name. Go ahead and connect with me. Shoot me a message. I want to hear from you and I want to have a conversation. Denise, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. On LinkedIn, Denise Johnson, please follow, but please send an invite to connect. Would absolutely love that. And you can find me at growpeopleforimpact.com.
Love it. Always a pleasure, Denise.
And you. Thank you, Javon.
Thank you.
Bye,
Well,
y'all.
everyone, we'll see you soon. Remember to keep us